Never know what you're going to hear. I do like that song. I have to tell you, it's so catchy. And I'm sorry if you sing it all day tomorrow, too. Especially if you come back tomorrow, you may. But I remember singing in the car, we'll burn a fire, we can burn brighter. And I'm in the car singing with my kids. And they're like, Mom, you can't sing that song. And my first thought is, but I've got all the pitches right. Not that I wasn't young, you know. So anyway, it's more than a song. It was the third most popular song in 2012, which Call Me Maybe beat it, which I thought was a good thing. I love Call Me Maybe. But it was the third most popular song, but it became more than a song. It became a mantra. This is how I want to live my life. YOLO. If it feels good, do it. I'm going to go to the bathroom and get higher than the Empire State because that's just what I want to do. I don't care what I do as long as you can drive me home. And it became a way of life because we were young. That's scary, isn't it? Isn't that a scary philosophy to have on life? And yet when we look at Ecclesiastes, which is where we're starting, Ecclesiastes, Solomon kind of had that. We know that he was richer than anyone. He was smarter than everyone. He had more wives than anyone would choose to have, ever. And yet, everything was meaningless. And he starts this first chapter of how meaningless everything is, meaningless, everything is meaningless under the sun. And I've done it, and I've tried it all. Now, then we get into the second chapter, and this is where he really breaks it down. Now, I'm an 80s girl, and I know, I love it. And so when I hear break it down on Ecclesiastes chapter 2, yeah, it's got to be a rap. Okay, so as any good 80s girl knows, this by far is one of the best rappers. This is Ecclesiastes 2, Allah will. Now this is the story all about how my life changed from a smile to a frown. I'd like to take a minute, just sit right there. I'll tell you how life is meaningless and full of hot air. In Jerusalem palace, born and raised, grew up to be king, studying all of my days. Learned to be wise and the coolest of cool. I was so hot, I made all the ladies drool. I went on search to find all that I like. Food, drugs, and punched them spikes. Had lots of great girls with brown and red hair. Still said life is meaningless and full of hot air. I built a church and some houses, and just for a lark, built vineyards and gardens and even a park. Cattle, goats, and sheep that were there. But guess what? You got it. It was full of hot air. Lots of money to add to the fun. I really had tried all that's under the sun. Looked at my kingdom and all that was there, and life is meaningless and full of hot air. Yeah. Okay, now do you really want to hear what the scripture says? Don't you think that that's what they were trying to find in We Are Young? I'm going to set the world on fire. They're just trying to find meaning. And Solomon spent a whole book in the Bible trying to find meaning. So let's, Ecclesiastes chapter 2, let's break it down, scripture-wise. I thought in my heart, come now, I will test you with pleasures to find out what is good. I love that. So he's a smart guy. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to set up an experiment. Right? Like all smart people do? I don't know, but I don't do that. But Solomon, smart guy, said, here's the experiment. But that also proved to be meaningless. Laughter, I said, is foolish. And what does pleasure accomplish? I tried cheering myself with wine and embracing folly, my mind still guiding me with wisdom. I wanted to see what was worthwhile for men to do under heaven during the few days of their lives. I undertook great projects. I built houses for myself and planted vineyards. I made gardens and parks and planted all kinds of fruit trees in them. I made reservoirs to water groves for flourishing trees. I bought male and female slaves and have other slaves who were born in my house. I also owned more herds and flocks than anyone in Jerusalem before me. I amassed silver and gold for myself and the treasure of kings and provinces. I acquired men and women singers and a harem as well, the delights of all the heart of man. Okay, I I think the Bible is so funny sometimes. I mean, like, and the delights of all the hearts of men. Don't you kind of, probably know what I'm saying? I mean, really? I think that is so funny. Anyway, I'm not going on with that. That you just, whatever that is, delights of all men. I became greater by far than anyone in Jerusalem before me. In all this, my wisdom stayed with me. I denied myself nothing my eyes desired. I refused my heart no pleasure. My heart took delight in all my work, and this was the reward for all my labor. Yet when I surveyed all that my hands had done and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun. I tried everything, I did everything, and nothing was gained under the sun. Let's kind of take it down. What did Solomon try to find? First of all, he was on a quest for pleasure, right? So quest for pleasure. He looked at laughter. Let me watch a good movie. Let me call in some comedians and make me laugh, because laughter, that's a sure sign that I'm fulfilled, that I'm satisfied, right? Or what about, let me just invite my friends. I'll invite my friends to a big party. We're going to get drunk. It's going to be great. We're just going to have a ball. That's what I'm going to try. What about, no, here it is. I'm going to build homes all over the place. That is what's going to make me happy. I'm going to build a home here and right up top of this mountain, and it is just going to be great. I'm going to have vacation homes all over the place, and that is where I'm going to find fulfillment. Or I will bring my own musicians in. Solomon is great. Oh, Solomon is great. And then I'm going to feel good about myself. Or I have 1,000 women to choose from. Yeah, no awes on that. 1,000 women to choose from that are his concubines or wives. That's crazy. And he searched all of that for pleasure. And you know what he found? That it was this vicious circle of me and more. Me and more. What I got, I wanted more of. And then it became all about Solomon. I mean, think of the 1,000 women that were there. They had no other life than that. They were denied a family, a real normal life, because they were called to live in the palace. And he didn't even think of that. He didn't even think of that, because all he was after was what his pleasure called for. And so that is what he did. And once he got this, then, you know what? I'm happy here. I need to do more. Don't you think that's why we don't like sequels? Like, because this movie is great, and then Iron Man 2 came out, and we were expecting so much more, and it's not. And we're just so disappointed because it wasn't more. Because we have this level of excitement, and we want more and more and more and more to feel the same level of excitement. It's crazy, and it's this vicious cycle. I love baseball. I love going to Reds games when the Cardinals play the Reds. I know. Okay, but the first time you go to a baseball game, it's amazing. You walk into the stadium, and oh, it's so big, and oh, those steps are really steep. And just to listen to the crack of the ball on the bat, and that is so exciting to see your favorite player run out onto the field. That is so cool the first time you go. And then the second time you go, you know what? I've got to have a jersey to experience this even better. So then I get my Cardinals jersey on, and it used to be Pujols on the back. Yeah, and this is cool because this is what I need to do to enjoy the game. And then I've got to have the foam finger. And then if I don't catch that t-shirt, I'm not going to enjoy this game. And then, okay, I just found out that they have this helmet full of nachos, like with chili and cheese, and it's not just on the top, but they layer it all the way through. Okay, I am definitely going to have that leveled on to enjoy the game. Do you see that? It's a vicious cycle. And that's what Solomon's saying. You know what? I can never have enough. I just need more and more and more and more, and I am never satisfied. I am never satisfied with what I have in pleasure. So he said, I'm going to be successful. So here's my quest for success. I am going to build gardens and parks, and they are going to be beautiful. Okay, this is what is so cool. Did you see that he built an irrigation system? Now this is the cool thing, is my mom just got back from Jerusalem. And she said, we saw the ditches that Solomon built. And I'm like, oh, I just read about that. It's really cool when it kind of comes to life. And so he built ditches to irrigate his gardens and parks so he would have luscious plants. I think that's brilliant. That's amazing. And so then he had slaves. But he didn't just have slaves. He had slaves that had children. So he had generations of slaves, which kind of helps prove your success because they're doing the work for you, which I would love one for my house. But anyway, not a slave, just a helper. Okay, then he also had herds and flocks. So basically, he had the most stuff. Okay? He owned the most, he had the most stuff. His wealth was unsurpassed. Now, I think Kevin said that it was about $10 to $14 billion that he made a year. Okay, just to put this in perspective, the richest person I know of, and I pretty much just know US, I don't know the people in Dubai, I don't know how much those guys make. But just in our context, the richest person we know about here is Bill Gates, right? Okay? Bill Gates only makes $7.8 billion a year. So Solomon was twice his worth. That's amazing, right? How crazy is that? It was like 200 million a second is what Bill Gates made, so double that. So Solomon is making like $400 million a second. That's wealth that I can even fathom. He was greater by far than anyone, could be ever, right? I mean, 10 to 14 billion is a significant amount. Could be ever, that this is the greatest guy that's ever lived. And that's pretty impressive when you're filling out a resume, right? And yet, life is meaningless. Life isn't worth anything because even when I'm on a quest for success, I'm all about me and more. It's all about me. Who do I have to step on to get to the top? Who do I have to cheat or take money from in order to get wealthy? Because it doesn't matter as long as I have it. Who am I going to hurt along the way in order that I have success, in order that I have fulfillment? And when is enough enough? When do I have enough? When have I arrived? When I'm greater by far? When I'm greater by far than anyone else? Because even then, it's meaningless. Even then, it's meaningless. Let's take a look at the kings of our day. The king of rock and roll, right? Elvis, and yet he died a lonely man. He had fame, he had power, he had riches, and he had a TV in every house because he was so lonely. And he wound up overdosing on drugs, trying to find meaning somewhere. Or what about the king of pop, Michael Jackson? He had money, he had fame, he had power, he had everything that he could want, and he had to build an amusement park to try to find enjoyment somewhere. Somewhere. There's got to be meaning. There's got to be enjoyment somewhere. Because so far, it's all meaningless. And we all know how his life ended. All of these people have tried over and over again to find meaning. Solomon, find meaning. Where's the meaning in my life? When am I going to be satisfied? When can I find happiness? Why do I feel this emptiness inside of me? And yet, don't we all feel that sometimes? That emptiness inside of us? We want bigger, better, more. So sometimes, wouldn't it be nice to just have a bigger house? That's Bill Gates' house, by the way. I guarantee you that I wouldn't say, I can't find any closet space in this place. I promise I wouldn't say that. Okay? Because we're looking for a bigger house, a better house. Or we could be looking for a better car. I wanted a better car a few weeks ago when I was stranded in Indianapolis. And I said, that's just what we need. We need a new car. It was like a $100 part and it was good to go. So anyway, or we could search for a better job. More successful in our job, I think that that's what's going to do it for us. Or we could search for a better spouse. Oh yeah, better spouse. Love you, honey. Okay, or we could search for a way to look like Scarlett Johansson and eat all the chocolate we wanted. Wouldn't that be awesome? It's kind of funny, but yet we are on a search for something bigger, better, more, because that's what's going to make me happy. We look in Ecclesiastes and Solomon continues to go on with the chapter, and he's going, I look to wisdom. I tried to get all the knowledge I could, because if I know more, then I'll be able to do more. I'll be able to solve this. If I know more, that's what I've got to have. And then he says, but guess what? It all ends in death and it's meaningless anyway. He's just a neat guy, isn't he? Isn't he fun? When is Solomon going to find the answers? And he does. Chapter 2, verse 24. He comes to this. A man can do nothing better than to eat, drink, and find satisfaction in his work. This too, I see, is a gift from the hand of God. For without him, who can eat or find enjoyment? So everything is a gift from God, even the enjoyment of everything. Everything is a gift from God, even the enjoyment of everything. Isn't that awesome? So that's what he finds. I love the rest of the book because he goes on, and I tell you, I don't know how many other things he encounters. By 9, he's like, everything's death, everything's death, everything's death. It gets really a lot better, yeah. But at each section, he finds meaning. And I want to share some of those with you right now. He finds meaning in chapter 3, verse 12 through 15. And I'm just going to kind of paraphrase these if you want to jot them down and look it up later. But these are the times that Solomon finds meaning. I just want to point these out. In chapter 3, verse 12 through 15 and 22, he finds that satisfaction is a gift from God. And everything God does will endure. Nothing on this earth is going to endure, but everything God does will endure. This is my favorite. In chapter 5, verses 18 through 20, he develops a spirit of thankfulness. Everything is a gift from God. Seems to be a theme here, right? Thankfulness. Everything is a gift from God. God, I thank you for everything that we have, the enjoyment of everything we have. And he develops this thankful spirit. I love this. This is Solomon saying this. I seldom reflect on the days of this life because God keeps me occupied with the gladness of his heart. Let me say that again. That's just awesome. I seldom reflect on the days of this life, even though I have everything. Even though I look around and everything is around me at my fingertips, all the pleasures of this world are right here, and they don't matter anything at all. I don't even reflect on what I have right here because you are the gladness of my heart. I love that. In chapter 8, verse 15, he says it's good to enjoy this life. It's good because everything's a good gift from God, and joy will accompany you when you realize that. In chapter 9, verse 7 through 10, that's the death chapter, he says, enjoy life as God's gift. Enjoy God's gift as long as we are able. Because when we attribute it all to God, it changes our whole outlook. So here's Solomon's conclusion of the whole book. Here it is, one sentence. Pleasures, they're here to take a part of. But don't let ourselves be so consumed with ourselves and our pursuit for self-gratification and that seeking that path that we lose sight of God. We lose sight of worship, we lose sight of an attitude of thankfulness, and we lose sight of doing other things for others. We sometimes look for the change around us, things that we need to change around us, and Solomon is saying we need to look for the change within us, because that is where we're going to find meaning. It's when we change within who God wants us to be. And you will only find meaning when you find God as your focus. Booyah! Done. That's it. But wait a minute. This was written 3,000 years ago. And still, generation after generation after generation, we fall into the same trap. This seems pretty simple. Why is this difficult? Why do we continue to make the same mistakes over and over and over again? I remember Nancy Fritz asked me to chaperone a student assembly, and it was junior high kids. And the speaker came in, and I think this guy, I wish I knew his name. You can probably tell me who it is. He came in, and he graduated from Mason County, and he had gotten one of the only people that had gotten a full-ride golf scholarship. And he was, slated to go pro, full-ride golf scholarship to college, and he was on the amateur circuit in golf, and one of his best friends gave him a pill. And he thought, why not? I think it'll relax me. I'm really stressed out. This is a huge responsibility, and I think if I have this one pill, that I'm going to feel better, and I'm going to do something better. And he said only one pill is all it took for him to get hooked to heroin. Only one pill, and he was hooked, and it destroyed his life. He will never be a professional golfer. He has lost everything. Everything, because he thought the temporary satisfaction of one pill was going to change his life. And I remember sitting there thinking, oh God, are these kids going to get it? Drugs are a huge issue. Lord, what is it going to take for these kids to hear this, for these kids to be able to process this, that this is horrible and they can change their lives? And then I got to thinking, don't you think God thinks that of us? What is it going to take? I've laid all this out for you. I've laid it out. Solomon I've given him everything to show you how it means nothing. All you have to do is focus on me, and that's where your meaning's going to be. It's not going to be on anything else that you try here. When do you think you might listen to me? Maybe we don't listen because we don't think that we fall into that trap. sometimes we don't even know. We just live our lives and we're thinking, oh yeah, I'm pretty dissatisfied with what I know. But we have no idea that we are on this path of self-destruction, that we're on this path of me, more. Look at your hearts. If I'm dissatisfied, where's my focus? Maybe I just need to reevaluate myself. Maybe it's not Susie Schmoozy that needs the changing. Maybe it's me. Or could it be that I have to blaze my own trail? I have to find out for myself. Well, good. Blaze your own trail, but do it within God's walking steps. Or maybe you process under experience is the best teacher, because I learn better if I experience it, right? I mean, it's true. It is true. You do learn things more than you experience. That's why hands-on learning is so important. However, I teach preschool. And I have to tell you, the one thing that you could never bring into a preschool classroom is a fan. I don't know what it is about it, but you bring in that fan and they're like, oh, you will get nothing done. Literally, ah, you know what I'm talking about. And then they try to stick their fingers through the little things, and those little preschool fingers can fit. And they go right through that little guard, and they're trying to fit. No, don't do that. Don't. You can't slap their fingers. I would do that to my own kids, but not theirs, I promise. No, you cannot do that. You cannot stick your fingers in there. It'll hurt, I promise. Sure thing. It's going to rip your fingers off. It's going to be very, very painful. Oh, they cannot leave it alone. It is too mesmerizing. I'm like, can't you see that blade is going 500 miles an hour? It's going to be horrible. Ooh, they're right in there. And I cannot let that go. Because experience is not the best teacher in this situation, because the consequences are too high. And sometimes that's the way it is in our lives. We can't rely on experience alone, because the consequences are too high. You could lose your life. You could destroy everything. So listen. Solomon's saying, listen. Listen from all the destruction of my life that I've done. I want you to hear this, because the consequences are too high. Or what about maybe you have the Superman complex? Or sometimes what I like to refer to this as the Paul Conrad complex. I am smarter, braver, stronger. I am above it all, and I can do it. Right? Okay, so there was this study that was done by, I'm going to have to look, sorry, because I won't remember this name, J.T. McCurdy. Okay? And he came back and he performed a study of the London bombings right before the Second World War. Now, the Germans were going to launch an attack of 57 nights of straight night bombing on the city of London. And Churchill was scared because he knew that London was a sitting duck. There was nothing they could do. They didn't have time to prepare, and it was just going to be mass destruction. But what was even more scary is the chaos that was going to ensue after that, what happened at the bombings. So the bombings, some more people were going to be dead, but the people that weren't were going to run around crazy. It was going to be panic and pandemonium, and that was going to be even more destructive than the actual bombings themselves. So that's what they thought. So they thought that they would ship the children out and some women out, maybe the crazy ones, you know what I'm saying. Okay, the crazy ones out, or maybe they left the crazy ones in the bomb hide, so whatever. Anyway, I don't know what they did. But they did ship some of the children out to keep them safe. And then they tried to create shelters, what they could, because they knew it was coming. And the bombing started. And McCurdy, looking back on what had happened, he classified people into 3 groups. The first group is the ones that didn't make it through the bombing. Now, that group was only 40,000. So if 57 straight nights of bombing, and then there was more bombing that was just the opening attack, 57 days. Only 40,000 people died. Now that's really not a whole lot when you look at it's a city of over 8 million. So there really weren't a whole lot. The second group were the near misses. Those are the ones that maybe got hurt, or they exploded right next to them, and they felt the blast. They saw they heard it. They experienced it right there, right next to it. And they were like, this is scary, and I don't want to be a part of it anymore. And they operated out of fear. And they took care of themselves, and they took precautions against everything. The third group is the most interesting, and it happened to be the largest group. And the third group are the remote misses. These are the ones that had happened down the street, and it didn't really affect them directly. They heard the blast, but they could still kind of keep going on. The first time, they were like, oh, well, that didn't hurt. Once they made it through this 2 or 3 times, I'm going to get this right because I don't want to mess it up. They have found, here it is. They came away with a feeling of invincibility. And it was almost a thrill. Almost a thrill. I made that through. I must be invincible. I made it through this time. I'm going to make it through another time. And they didn't take any precautions at all, because after each close call and they made it through, I am Superman. I can do this. I am stronger and bigger and braver. They said by the 57th day, and the sirens would go off, there were kids that didn't even stop playing basketball. Women would hear the sirens and they'd come out of the store and they'd just grab the child's hand. They didn't run. They just continue to walk down the street. It didn't even faze them because they had a feeling of invincibility. Now, if we take this to modern day, I think we can kind of see, like, maybe texting and driving. Now, I'm a little bad at this because I let my schedule kind of control me sometimes. And I'm thinking, oh, I got away with it last time. I'm really good at this. I'm better than most. I know it's a danger. I know it is. But I'm pretty good. And I can see the road. I can see the road and do this at the same time. And I lead myself to believe that I'm Superman, that I'm bigger, that I'm better, that I'm smarter, that this won't happen to me. Or what about drinking and driving? It was fine last time I did it. I'm going to be fine this time. Or drinking, period. I had 2. Tonight I'll have 3. Tomorrow night I'll have 4. It'll be okay. It won't affect me negatively. I won't become an alcoholic. It's not going to happen to me. Or what about pornography? You know what? I'm just doing it to benefit my marriage. I'm not really in a relationship, so this is just kind of to tide me over. And it gets its teeth into you, and you don't know what to do about it. And those are just small decisions that can destroy your life. What about shopping? You know what? I'm just going to buy this little thing that makes me feel good, and I'm bankrupting my family from credit card debt. I mean, the list goes on and on. I know I can't touch them all, but these small decisions to satisfy our selfish desires that destroy us from the inside out. When are we going to listen? One of the things that is in Psalm 90, verse 12. And Solomon kind of says it at the very beginning of chapter 2. It talks about the few days of our lives. Psalm chapter 90, verse 12 says, "Teach us to number our days, that we may apply our hearts to wisdom." Teach us to number our days, that we may apply our hearts to wisdom. Well, I have to tell you, I've done that for you. And you're not going to like it, sorry. So here are your days. Ta-da! All right? Now this is based on, can you guys see okay? Is that okay? Sorry, I don't know if I can move it much farther. This is based on an average life expectancy. Now, I haven't really numbered your days, but I have numbered your weeks, okay? So if you're in your 20s, and this is the beginning of the 20s, you have about this many weeks of your life left. Average life expectancy. However, if you continue going to McDonald's, that's gone. Okay? Or, you know what? If you live your life living from one pleasure to another, you may not even remember this week. It'll just be gone. Or maybe this one. Just gone. It looks like you have a lot, but they disappear quickly. Not quick enough, sorry. This is your 30s, okay? So you can tell we had to go to a smaller jar, but it didn't quite fit. So it still seems like you have quite a bit. But if you're in your 30s, you probably have toddlers, preschool kids. Oh my goodness, that takes the life right out of you. Right there. You can still make some poor choices. Decreases your life expectancy. All right, now you're in your 40s. This is where I am. I fill a full jar. One little jar, and that's it. That's all I have left. That's kind of crazy. You probably have teens, maybe in your 40s. Yeah, you lose a lot of beans there. Whew. But I do have to tell you, you do increase your prayer life. And Conrad, you're in this jar too, and if you keep leaving that toilet seat down, that's your life right there, buddy. Then we get to the 50s. The jar's getting smaller. You could almost take that out and count it, and that gets scary. Because all of a sudden, I'm in my 50s. What happened? Where did it go? And that is when regret sets in. And you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, I wasted so many of those beans in my 20s. I want to get them back. And you can't get them back. They're counted and they're gone. And this is where it all kind of hits. What if it hit here? And you remembered all of these weeks? And you made great choices? You married the right person? You did all the right, better things with God's approval? You worked hard at things? And then when you're 50 and you only have half a jar left, you don't have to look back on your 20s and say, oh, if only. If only I'd. If only I'd. And that's what Solomon wants to save you from. Right here. Teach us to number our days so I can be wise, so I can be smart about it. This is what Solomon wants to save you from getting to your 60-year-old jar and going, it's gone. It's gone, and I didn't do anything positive. You know what one person said about We Are Young? We are young, I'm going to set the world on fire, and I'm sitting at a bar stool not doing anything. And that's what happens. We have all these big dreams, and we do nothing to make them come into reality. Focus on God. It all comes down to this. One of my favorite movies right now, and it's kind of an older movie, but it's Night and Day. Have anybody seen Night and Day? Tom Cruise, Cameron Diaz. If you haven't, it's a really good movie. It's great. And it's not just a chick flick. My husband likes it too. Okay? So, basically what happens is Cameron Diaz is running from bad guys, and then she's running from even worse guys. And Tom Cruise is trying to help her and save her because anyway, it's kind of hard. But anyway, they wind up, he's trying to save her and help her. And she doesn't want his help because she doesn't know if he's a bad guy or a really bad guy or an even worse guy. She has no idea. So Tom Cruise grabs her and he says, listen, your life expectancy with me, up here. Without me, down here. With me, without me. That's your survival rate. Solomon is saying that you want to live your life full of no regrets. You want to live a happy, successful life. You want to live it to the fullest with God, without God. And God is saying, with me or without me? It's your choice. But your days are numbered, so make the right one. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for your word. We thank you so much for telling us when we're going the wrong way, when we need to switch up our path, and that you will be with us. Help to change our heart so we know to do the right thing. Lord, help us find satisfaction only in you, that we discover the gladness of your heart. And we thank you for all of our days. They are definitely a gift from you. We ask all these things in your holy, precious name. Amen. I want to thank you for being with us, and I hope you have, after all that meaningless, I hope you have a great week, okay? Thank you. We'll see you next week.